Well, hello, everyone. We're straight up on 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and I have an amazing guest today, Dionne Mejer, and she is the CEO and founder of Inside Sales by Design. So she's been doing that for many, many years and watching how markets have changed over the past year. So let's get Dionne up here and welcome, Dionne.
Thank you, Paula, for having me. And it's always such a pleasure to see you and talk with you. You are an amazing human, and I love every minute we have together.
Oh, bless you. So tell us now that we're in our Don't Stop Me Now leadership, right?
I love it.
Tell me a little bit about what you're doing now with Inside Sales by Design with
Oh,
everything that's going on.
thank you. Thank you. Gosh, Paula, and I want to hear what you're seeing out there in the world too. And it's so funny. There's change is always glacial. Well, not always. I shouldn't use extreme examples, extreme wording, right? But change can be glacial at the end of the day because we're humans. We don't really like it and all that good stuff, right? And changes used to take generations. However, with technology and just the way the world is these days, change is definitely speeding up, which is interesting. And so, really, a lot of what I'm seeing now is how do we get into revenue generation mode quicker, right? And so, that's always been a burning question. I think with the world shutting down for COVID, it really turned the tables on so many things when it comes to prospecting, attention, time, not only from a work perspective, but now you got people working from home. Like the lines have all blurred and who's doing what and how do we budget? How do we forecast? What does that look like? Do we go back to the office? Do we not go back to the office? What are the rules? So, I mean, it's just become this free for all. And so a lot of organizations are trying to really maintain steady state. Um, as humans, we look to our institutions for that steady state, whether it's school, work, right? It's just we're looking for consistency and constancy. So, really seeing a lot of that, seeing a lot of how do we start normalizing, systematizing things.
Oh, wow. That is a lot bundled into one big statement with consistency
Yeah.
and change and stabilizing everything. And that's the big question. You are inside sales by design, and the lines between inside sales and really field sales, it's just really become sales now. But
Yes.
what do leaders do? What do leaders need to be doing to prepare so that they can provide that stability and that revenue growth for organizations?
Yeah, Paula, it's such a great question. And some individuals know and some don't, right? And so I think it always, 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 always comes from top down. What is our North Star? What are our goals? What is our framework? Like we have to have some of those basics in place. Otherwise, we end up creating these micro components that don't tie into anything. And
Right.
so, from a sales leadership perspective, it's really how do we get our team what they need when they need it. And so a lot of times we end up going on a fact finding mission of, well, how do we know what your teams need right now? Have you as a sales leader, sales manager, listened to phone calls, done the virtual ride alongs, right? To figure out what it is our teams need, your teams need to be successful. Because we don't want to just throw a bunch of training out there and be like, hey, hope this works, right? Again, we need to be able to give people what they need when they need it and why they need it. And then I always coach leaders too, where I say, listen, you have to deliver sales training in the way you want your salespeople to communicate with your buyers and prospects.
That's a really good point right there.
So
And
if, yeah, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go.
Well, and when we were talking to Dr. Jubinville last couple of times ago, he really brought up a great point, and I'd love to get your intake on it. He was saying that employees want four things from their organization. They want to learn,
Mhm.
they want to grow in responsibility, they want to contribute to others, and they want to be recognized. While organizations want growth in revenue, they want their employees to sell something,
Mhm.
to solve something, to create something, and to add immediate value. How can do you I love that statement there that he has that, but how do you see bringing those both together to create that revenue generating growth that we need?
Yeah, and those are really great points. And I think calling those out and articulating it is really, really paramount, right? And there's a way to harmonize those things, and they're not mutually exclusive, right? And so when we talk with organizations, it's always what is the company's North Star? And I'm not talking about a mission statement that sometimes people create those things and then nobody knows what it is anymore, or what are the company values, right? So what is the company's purpose statement? What are we here to do? How do we serve, engage, and grow? And then once you have those overarching themes and principles in place, now it comes down to the tactics. How do we do those things? And so to that point, and to the information that he had shared with you, what we teach with folks, and shameless announcement, there's a book coming out at the end of the year called A Stepped Approach. So that's exciting. Um, but with that is when we get with our leaders or sales enablement teams, we talk about as an educator, right? So there's a difference between education and training.
Mhm,
Education is teaching the fundamentals, training is teaching tactics. And so from a sales leadership enablement perspective, when we are being a teacher, we are introducing and we are teaching and we're applying. So that's kind of how we want to create a quote unquote lesson plan, right? Or for rolling out a piece of sales education and training. Then we want to turn around to our learner and talk about how do we want you to learn and create something and then execute against it,
mhm.
right? And so to your point, when the organization is looking for growth and revenue, how do we marry that to the day in the life of our sellers, and how do those two match? Right. And so it's
Right.
really laying out that groundwork, and not every organization does that well. Right.
Mhm.
So it's really slowing down to speed up to lay that framework.
I love that, and congratulations on the book. That's exciting. That's
Oh,
so great.
yeah.
Um, do you think that micro lessons are really important in this? Because a lot of people kind of educate and learn in chunks, but
Yeah.
then the deployment part of it and how we want them to deploy it could be in role plays.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you, Paula, for sure. Right. I think it's micro trainings are great. Snack size trainings are great. That is how we are conditioned at
Mhm.
this point, right? Everything is 30 minutes or less. The only time I really want to watch a long video is if I go to the movie theaters now that they're back open, or I'm going to sit on my couch with the fire going, like a popcorn and all that good stuff, right? So we need to be mindful of our audience. And we need to be mindful too that if we're teaching, folks that are coming out and they're in their early 20s, right?
Mhm.
We live in a world where there are no surprises, zero. I come from a world and generation of you need to figure it out. You're a latchkey kid,
Yeah,
right? Which we wouldn't even think about today.
yeah.
So, and very much so, you need to figure it out, right? And so there's not a
Right.
lot of that these days. So we
Yeah.
do a lot of snow plowing for people, meaning we make things very easy. So throughout their academic career, there was no surprises. There's a syllabus, there's a clearly defined path. You're going
Mhm.
to go here, you're going to do this, right? All that good stuff, 9 times out of 10. Then you're going to go to college, and here's a syllabus, and here's a thing, and here's a resource, and here's somebody you should talk to, and you're going to have a plan. And then, poof, we have individuals in their early 20s or wherever they may be in that journey. Doesn't matter, age doesn't necessarily matter. But then they go into a work environment and there's nothing, and there's a lot of you need to figure it out.
Yeah. It's a lot of, I'm gonna push you in the deep end, and you're either gonna sink or swim,
Right.
right?
Right.
But
So
that do you I believe that's happening with leaders as well, not
it is.
just not just, we promote leaders, based on a few things, and we've gotten really a lot better at defining leadership as far
Mm,
as having both the resume skills that I talk about and the emotional based
yes.
skills, right? But there's still some training that needs to go on and some education or do what we did and self-teach and figure it out, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And again, I'm speaking in broad brushstrokes, right? And there are individuals and pockets and all that jazz, right?
Right.
So, but I think to what you're saying too, Paula, is I was talking with a colleague of mine who's a chief operating officer at an organization, and he had an interesting stat where he said some individuals will get their first promotion into leadership, late 20s, early 30s, but no formal leadership training until their 40s.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, so for the checkers out there, you can fact check that, but or think about your own career. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
So, how are we looking at, to your point, like the things that we're really good at, the quantifiable hard skills, and then the soft skills as
Mhm.
well? And what does it mean to be a leader? And how do you delegate? And how do we use our words in this new role? It's a whole different ballgame.
It is a whole different ballgame. And I how do you train on those soft skills? Because each person is unique. They may have different, natural abilities. Not everybody's going to have that warmth and empathy,
No,
and not everybody is keen on transparency.
no.
But if we can find those natural skills, which we do in side B,
Yeah.
that's what can bring out each leader as being unique.
Yeah. And I think the work that you're doing, Paula, is so important, right? And connecting with it again as a person that is a little bit older, right? I mean, you went to work and you went to work,
Yeah,
and neither of the two, work and emotion, shall meet.
right.
And because as a leader, we have a fiduciary responsibility to our company and our team.
Yeah,
And that line can be sometimes hard to walk. And so I think the work that you're doing and connecting those two sides is super important. Right. And I, number one, and number two, being able to have those conversations that say, hey, you seem to be having a hard time, whether, for those of us in the age where you've got parents that are aging and kids that are growing up, and,
yeah,
everybody's
that
got a
sandwich.
thing. Yeah, everybody's got a thing. So it's like, how do we put all that together in a way that brings out the best for everybody?
Right. And
And
and that's the interesting part of it is I'll use the words of Kelly Clarkson on The Voice. How do we navigate that? As she always talks about navigating. And those are some tough questions that leaders need to not be afraid of. And that, like you said, this is just brush strokes. There are some great
yeah,
organizations out there. There are some great leaders out there. We all have had them, but we've all had our fair share of leaders who need a little help.
we all have needed help in our careers, and we all still need help.
Yes.
Right. And so I don't know about you, but like, you're part of my tribe, and we all have a tribe. We all have coaches,
Yeah.
right? That we go to and like, what the heck just happened? Right. Like, how do I get back on the rails, or how can I help you? Right.
Right.
Like, this community component is huge because nobody has all the answers.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and, you were at one point creating a community. Are you still? I mean, we're part of a community, but are you still doing something along those lines?
Yeah, so definitely still part of AISP. And so we're relaunching the Orange County, California chapter. So for those of you that are in Southern California, in Orange County, we're having our next meeting Thursday, April 14th, in person. So as long as you're comfortable with that approach. So yeah, we're definitely doing that for sure.
Good, 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 good. I love those communities. I just, was able to speak at the one here in Columbus,
Nice.
and it was a lot of fun because there's a lot of like-minded thought that goes amongst the organ or all the different organizations that
Yeah.
come to these meetings,
Yep.
but there's also diversity of thought.
And that, Paula, I love that phrase, right? We don't need more groupthink. We need folks that are going to catch what everybody else can't. And the diversity of thought is so important because, to your point, somebody may be really, really strong in one area, which means we're going to miss something.
Right.
And maybe what we miss or what we're focusing on isn't the right thing. Right.
Right.
So it's really important to have those broad components at the table. So, yeah, love it.
What do you think about, because we offer a team leadership as well, a
Yeah.
workshop, but using your teams inherently within an organization, whether it's inside sales, field sales, marketing, customer experience, customer enablement, operations, you know, having that cross-functional team really meeting not at a very high level, but at a manager
Yeah.
level where they could have those conversations and bounce ideas off of each other, because they do have different skill sets and
Hmm.
different traits.
Hmm. Absolutely. And the short answer is yes. Right. The longer answer is sometimes those conversations need to be facilitated. And
Mhm.
then if you are trying to introduce change, recognize it's a change management function. So as leader, where are you at on the change management arc? Right. So adult learner theory, all that good stuff. I'm not trying to overcomplicate it. But so many times we go into something and we're just like, yeah, it's going to be awesome. And we forget to bring people along the journey with us.
Mhm. Yeah.
So we need to make sure we're aware of the change management journey. And then I think too is, what is the North Star? What is the purpose?
Mhm.
Right? How many times have we gone into a meeting and we're talking tactical, and maybe it's just me, but I'm like, how does this fit into the bigger picture? Right? Like,
Right.
I'm not going to go and run a bunch of sprints if I'm supposed to be running a marathon.
Yeah.
So help me understand how running the sprints gets me ready for this. Like, I need somebody to help make sure I'm connecting the dots.
I love that, because of change and pivoting and course correcting, sometimes the long term seems so far away, but we have to have a short term result.
Yes.
So we're trying to understand what these sprints that we need to talk about. What
Yeah.
if we as leaders would put those sprints in the long term plan
Yes.
as needed,
Yeah.
when and roll it out that way?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's super important. And there's templates now and graphics like roadmap templates and stuff. And one of the things that we do with leadership is we do an annual planning exercise. And it sounds heavy, but it's really fun and everybody really enjoys it. And we say, okay, like, what are your top goals for 2022? And nine
Mhm.
times out of 10 in sales, they're revenue related or headcount related or whatever, which is fine. It's very, very quantitative.
Yeah.
Okay, great. How are you going to do that? What do you need to do that? Right? If we need to
And
start
what's the
onboarding people,
budget for that?
and what's the budget, right? So do we have budget for pen and pencil or do we have budget for digital, right? And
Right.
oh, by the way, my pen and pencil don't run out of batteries and they don't need Wi-Fi. I'm just going to throw that out there. So, it still works. If you need to print and ship, paper to people and you're on a Zoom call and everybody's taking notes, it still works,
Yeah.
right? I went to a leadership conference in high school, and that was the main theme where they're like, do what works.
I
Not
love that.
cool. Yeah. So say more.
No, no, that's all I was gonna say. Sorry, keep going. I
But
have this habit of going, "Oh, yes."
yeah. But it's true. We're like, oh, we got to put, LMS and we need this, and nobody under 30 owns a printer. I'm like, then buy them one. Paper and pen work. Right?
Right.
Reading off a screen. I mean, there's so much research out there. Like, it just, come on. You know what I mean? So I
We
think,
are
yeah.
we are inundated with knowledge, right? We
Yeah.
can get it at a moment's notice,
Yeah. We don't need
and
more knowledge.
we have it.
Yeah.
We need to be able to compartmentalize it, to understand it, and to shorten how we're going to work with things.
Yeah.
And I think that's where emerging leaders trying to understand who they are intentionally is so important, as they grow, because they won't lose that. And then they grow in, we grow so much in our resume skills that, sometimes we need to grow in our character skills.
Oh, Paula, that's amazing. I love that. And it's so true, right? Maturity isn't an age. Maturity is, have I learned from experiences, multiple, not one experience copied for 30 years?
Mhm, mhm. And being intentional, and that's what I love about bringing music to this, because as I was talking with James last week, and this was really great, we all have a song or something that will motivate us, but we also have a song that, hey, if we pardon my French, if we messed up, we'll say
Yeah.
it that way. If we messed up, then give me that moment to
Yeah.
just get angry.
Mhm.
Play a song, get it through until you're ready, and
Yeah.
then move on, right?
Amen to that, Paula. Like, how do we process those emotions? Because we have them, right? We're human, and then keep going, right? And so, to your point, how do we, stay in line with ourselves, right? And
Mhm.
then the exercise that we have folks do is, what are your overarching themes for the year, and then what are the three things you want to accomplish quarter over quarter,
Right.
and they're written down and they're shared,
I like
right?
that.
Because nothing good happens, grows in the dark, right? Except mushrooms. So, which is fine if you like mushrooms, but I don't know if
Or
they're the ones
that's
you
a
can eat.
fungus.
It's a fungus. We'll just say that. And so, really, it's like, how do we bring all this into the light and talk about, okay, you know what? I'm really good at X. I struggle with Y. Here's my plan. What needs to
Mhm.
happen to bring this to life?
Yeah.
Right. And so, to your point, like bringing our whole self into the mix, which is kind of a requirement now that we're, 22 years into the 21st century, but
Yeah.
better late than never.
We're getting there.
We're getting there.
We're getting there.
We're getting there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do have to bring our whole self in. Now, people are craving that. I mean,
Yeah.
even at the college level, the
Yeah.
professors are bringing their whole selves into the classroom. So, people coming out are expecting their leaders to be able to hold a conversation with them on going fishing or what's happening in the marketplace or those sort of things just for a brief moment, and then you move on, right,
Yes.
to business at hand. But you got to have those connections,
Yeah.
because that's really what sales is about, and it's really what revenue and growth is about, is really connecting not only with your employees but with your clients and
Mhm.
customers. How do you see leaders in the future really connecting with their, not only their employees but their clients and customers?
Yeah. And, Paula, it's how are we? Sorry for the background noise. We're working from home with a dog who's deciding to get awake for a moment.
That's
Um,
okay.
it is about connecting, right? And a lot of and being present, right? And that's not my strong suit, right? Because I'm like, I can multitask, it'll be fine, right? But to what we're saying is, when it's a human being, we have to just pause and just still our body and be present,
Mhm.
right? And we have to make sure we're able to do that. So one of the things we talk about is, don't put all your one-on-ones on the same day, because by the time you get to the last one, you're done. Like, our human brain can't pay attention for that long. We just can't,
Yeah.
right? So plan accordingly so we can give what the other person needs. And that's what it means to be a good leader, right?
Mm.
So
Mhm.
if I know I'm going to have one-on-ones, or I'm going to go into a discussion, it's not about what can I get out of this meeting. It's about, how do I need to show up in order to contribute to the greater good. Like, we're going
Yes.
into a forecasting meeting, where I'm going into a one-on-one as a leader. Have I set the agenda? Have I communicated the agenda? Have I communicated what needs to happen? Have I given my team what they need to be successful?
Yeah.
Right? Because
That's
then it's easy.
right. That is so true. And I love scheduling your one-on-ones. on different days. Otherwise, we become the TikTok of one-on-ones. Da, 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 da. We're done, right?
Yeah, and it's a waste of time,
Yeah.
right? And they don't have to be weekly. They have to work, right? So we're
Right.
kind of back to do what works,
So
right?
what works?
And give people what they need to be successful. So do they need a one-on-one or do they need to go for a walk?
Yeah.
Right. So I'm a bit, I mean, I've worked remotely forever at this point now, right? In 8 years of inside sales by design, right? But there's so much value in teams in person together.
Yes.
You learn so much.
You
So
do. You
it's just,
do.
it's the way it is,
And
right?
then how do we create that if we're going into a hybrid situation? That's the challenge.
Yeah.
That because a lot of people starting out start in this inside sales,
Mhm.
SDR, BDR, and they are focused on that. How do they learn when they're sitting in their office if their leader doesn't get them connected?
Yeah. Well, and I would say shame on the leader, right? I mean, you can still have connection, right? In a decentralized environment, it takes more effort,
Yes.
right? And it takes sending out invites and making sure people are scheduled. And it takes a little bit more follow up than just walking down to a set of cubicles, or if you're in an open office, right? Like you and you here, let's go,
Yeah.
right? That's easy. So a lot of, we're trying to create this connection and it's not simple.
Yeah.
So you can still do it. It's just not as simple and it requires more planning, right? And it requires a little bit more effort. But there's also a big difference between screen and in person, right? And
Mhm.
so I am seeing organizations wanting to do onboarding in person, even with organizations that all are 100% remote,
Yeah.
right? So I think, coming back to let's do our onboarding, together, or let's hold quarterly events, right? And leadership teams are still getting together in person. So why
Yes.
do you think it works for the leadership team and not the team? You know what I mean? So I get there's cost involved.
Mhm.
However, if we're trying to create a culture of engagement and connectedness, there's an investment that needs to be made.
Well, and you could take some of that investment if you're not using the building as much as you were and
Exactly.
you're reducing some of that, that's where some of that budget or that line item on the budget could go to, right?
Absolutely. I mean, again, we need to be financially responsible, right? And
Yes,
so it's like, how are we creating connectedness,
right.
right? At the end of the day. And God bless video, but it doesn't replace in person as we're on video right now. You know what I
I
mean?
know.
So many times, we're working with a team that's onboarding, and the last couple times it's been here, sit and watch all these videos, and this poor new hire is like, I need to talk. Right. And so even if you do that, that's fine, but you still have to carve out like an hour a day for your new hires in the first week to be like, hey, what'd you do? What'd you
Talk
right?
to
Like sitting there and watching videos, it's like if you sit and watch Netflix all day, your brain goes to sleep. It's the same thing. So
Yeah, exactly. Well, I certainly want to thank you, Dionne Mejer, and let you know that this has been wonderful. I've got some great key takeaways. I hope the audience did too. And sit tight for a moment, and I'll be right back with you.
thank you, Paula. Thank you for having me.